Purpose precedes power is not just a motivational phrase, it's a foundational principle of personal transformation and lasting success. At its core, it means that true power, the kind that creates impact and legacy, only flows correctly when it is guided by a clear, compelling sense of purpose. When power comes before purpose, it often leads to destruction or dissatisfaction. But when purpose is established first, power becomes a tool for building, for blessing others, and for becoming who you were always meant to be. Purpose answers the question of why. It defines the reason behind your actions, your ambitions, and your decisions. Power, on the other hand, is simply the ability to act, to influence, to move things, to create change. When someone has power without purpose, they may accomplish great things in the eyes of the world, yet still feel hollow inside. Or worse, they may use that power in ways that harm others or derail their own lives. Think of the business tycoon who amasses billions but loses his family and peace of mind, or the influencer who has millions of followers but lives with a quiet desperation because there is no real why behind all the noise. That's the danger of power without purpose. It becomes a hollow victory. But when purpose comes first, everything changes. Purpose gives power direction. It becomes the compass that guides your decisions, the engine behind your persistence, and the fuel for your growth. Purpose is what keeps you grounded when success comes quickly and what keeps you going when progress comes slowly. Without it, you'll chase empty goals, become easily distracted by comparison, or settle for comfort instead of growth. With it, you become unstoppable, not because everything is easy, but because everything is meaningful. Purpose is not just a nice idea. It is spiritual, it is foundational, it is a divine assignment. Every person on this planet was created with a purpose. And the degree to which we discover and align with that purpose determines how powerfully we will live. Some people are praying for power, more money, more influence, more opportunities, but the question isn't whether God or life will give you power. The real question is, have you discovered why you want it? Because purpose qualifies you for the power you're asking for. Without it, you won't steward that power well. You'll either waste it or weaponize it. Let's bring this concept to life with a simple example. Imagine two people who are given the exact same gift, a powerful sports car. Both of them now have tremendous horsepower under the hood. One of them takes off without a destination, speeding through streets aimlessly. At first, it's exhilarating. The engine roars, the thrill is real. But soon they get lost, they burn fuel, they get into dangerous situations. Eventually, the car ends up in a ditch damaged and wasted. The second person, however, spends time with a map before they ever touch the gas. They know exactly where they're going. They use the power of the car with discipline. Every turn is intentional. Every stop is strategic. The same power, but a different result because one had purpose and the other didn't. That's what your life is like. We all want the power to succeed, to influence, to create. But if you're not clear on your destination, your purpose, you'll misuse the very power you prayed for. Purpose doesn't just guide power, it multiplies it. When you're aligned with your purpose, you attract the right people, the right opportunities, and the right timing. There's a kind of divine flow that kicks in when you're living on purpose. People start showing up to help. Resources start making their way to you. Doors start opening that you didn't even knock on. Why? Because when you step into purpose, you step into a bigger story than your own. Power always flows to those who are committed to something bigger than themselves. One of the most overlooked truths about purpose is that it isn't about you. It involves you, but it's not about you. Purpose always connects to service. It's about what you can give, not just what you can get. When you live with a strong sense of purpose, your power isn't used to dominate, it's used to uplift. You stop competing and start contributing. You stop impressing and start impacting. And that's where real fulfillment lives, not in acquiring power, but in aligning it with purpose. People often confuse being busy with being purposeful. There's a massive difference. Busyness can give you the illusion of progress, but only purpose gives you direction. That's why some people work 60 hours a week and still feel like they're going nowhere. It's not a time issue, it's a purpose issue. When you don't know your purpose, you'll say yes to everything and mean nothing. But when your purpose is clear, your yes has power and your no has confidence. Purpose doesn't just clarify your direction, it also elevates your standards. When you know what you're called to do, you stop wasting time with things and people that don't align with that calling. You stop settling for jobs that pay but don't fulfill. You stop dating people who distract but don't build. You stop investing energy into habits that entertain but don't transform. That's the discipline that purpose brings. It upgrades your entire life. The beautiful thing is this: your purpose is already in you. It doesn't need to be invented, only discovered. It often lives in the intersection of your pain and your passion, your story and your solution. What breaks your heart? What lights your fire? What problems are you uniquely positioned to solve? That's where your purpose hides, waiting to be awakened. And once it is awakened, you'll never be the same, because now your power has a reason. Purpose isn't optional, it's essential. It is the foundation upon which power becomes meaningful, because the truth is you can climb the ladder of success and still feel empty if your ladder is leaning against the wrong wall. But when purpose is your foundation, every step matters. Every challenge grows you, and every win means something more than money or fame. It means you're fulfilling the reason you were Bo LD. But transformation begins with identity, not activity, is a foundational truth that challenges how most people approach personal growth, success, and change. We live in a culture obsessed with doing checklists, habits, goals, and productivity hacks. People are constantly asking, what do I need to do to become successful? Or what should I do to change my life? But here's the problem: they're starting with activity. And when you start with activity without first dealing with identity, you'll always get limited results. Or worse, you'll get the results you wanted and still feel unfulfilled. Real transformation doesn't start with your behavior. It starts with your belief about who you are. You can only act consistently with the kind of person you believe yourself to be. That's why someone can go to the gym every day for 3 months. But if deep down they still see themselves as lazy, undisciplined, or unhealthy, their old patterns will eventually return. Why? Because their identity never changed. Their activity was trying to outrun the version of themselves they were still attached to. Who you believe you are sets the ceiling for what you will allow yourself to experience. If you identify as broke, no matter how much money you make, you'll find ways to sabotage or shrink your income back to your comfort zone. If you see yourself as unworthy, no matter how much love or opportunity shows up, you'll find ways to push it away. This is the law of identity. You will always return to the level of your self-image. So if you want real, lasting transformation, you can't just upgrade your habits. You have to upgrade your identity. You have to stop asking, what should I do? And start asking, who am I becoming? When you align your identity with your vision, your actions will follow. You won't have to fight for discipline. It will feel natural because it flows from who you believe you are. Let me show you what this looks like in real life. Imagine 2 people trying to quit smoking. The first person says, I'm trying to quit. The second person says, I don't smoke. Now, both of them may have just stopped smoking a week ago, but their identity is different. The first person still sees themselves as a smoker who's trying to change. The second person already sees themselves as someone who no longer smokes. Now let's say someone offers them a cigarette. The first person says, oh, no thanks, I'm trying to quit. But there's hesitation because part of their identity still identifies with the habit. The second person says, oh, no thanks, I don't smoke. There's certainty, clarity, and alignment with a new self-image. One is battling the old self. The other's already become someone new. That is the difference between activity and identity. When your actions flow from a new identity, they're powerful, sustainable, and aligned. When your actions fight against your old identity, they're exhausting, temporary, and fragile. This is why people bounce back to old patterns even after major wins. It's not because they're lazy. It's because they try to change the fruit without changing the root. The fruit is behavior. The root is identity. If you want to permanently change the fruit, you must first transform the root. And this principle applies to everything: money, fitness, relationships, leadership, and success. If you want to become wealthy, don't just study how to make money. Become someone who sees themselves as a creator of value. If you want to be healthy, don't just follow a meal plan. Become someone who values your body as a sacred asset. If you want to be a great leader, don't just memorize strategies. Become someone who sees themselves as a builder of people. This shift doesn't happen by accident. You have to decide who you are. You have to rehearse a new identity until it becomes the default lens through which you live. You may not have seen yourself that way before, but that doesn't mean it's not who you are. It just means it's a part of you that hasn't been activated yet. Transformation starts when you stop letting your past define your identity and start letting your vision define it. And it's not about being fake. It's about being future focused. You don't become great and then believe you're great. You believe you're great and then you rise into it. You speak like it, act like it, and build habits around it. Your identity leads and your activity catches up. Here's another way to understand this. Your identity is your internal thermostat. Let's say your thermostat is set to 68 degrees. If success raises the temperature to 85, your internal settings will eventually bring it back down. You'll start procrastinating, overspending, or downplaying your value. Not because you're afraid of success, but because your identity is still set at a lower level. The only way to stay at 85 is to raise the thermostat. Raising the thermostat means intentionally redefining how you see yourself. Start saying things like, I'm disciplined, I'm a finisher, I'm a person of excellence, I'm a wealth magnet, or I'm a world-class communicator, even if you don't fully believe it yet. Why? Because your subconscious doesn't care whether it's true now. It follows the instructions you give it repeatedly. Eventually, your reality will rise to match your new identity. This is how the world's most successful people operate. They don't just do things differently, they see themselves differently. That's what allows them to operate at high levels under pressure, to take risks, to innovate, to bounce back from failure. They're not faking confidence, they're acting in alignment with who they've decided they are. And this is available to anyone. No matter what your past looks like, you can change how you see yourself. Your identity is not set in stone. It's built moment by moment, decision by decision, belief by belief. You don't need anyone's permission to become the next version of yourself. You just need to decide. If you want to transform your life, don't start by changing your schedule. Start by changing your story. The story you tell yourself about who you are. Because the truth is, you're not lazy. You're not unqualified. You're not stuck. Those are just identities you may have accepted based on past experiences, but they are not who you are. They are who you were. And you have the power to choose a new identity starting today. That's the secret. That's the switch. Activity will give you movement, but identity will give you momentum. Activity might change your behavior, but identity changes your destiny. You are not your habits. You are not your failures. You are not your fears. You are the author of your identity. And once you change that, you'll never have to chase transformation again